Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nidhi and I head the marketing at Payable Technologies. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome each one of you for taking out time and registering for our expert session, Eliminate Invoices Missing in Action through Automation. So for an uninterrupted user experience, we have muted all the participants. I will open up the forum at 3:30 so that if any of you have any question and answers, we'll be open to take them up. So post the event, if you would like to know, if you would like to understand more, you can connect with me on the given details. All right. So this expert session is organized by Payable Technologies. We are leading IT services and digital transformation companies based at Bangalore. We are an 11-year-old organization, and our core focus has been on technologies. Has been on technologies in and around on SAP ECC, SAP HANA, S4HANA, Ariba, Fiori, blockchain. So Payable was founded by Mr. Prashant Nagathan and Mr. Vinod Kumar. Both themselves have been ex-SAP alumni. They moved out of SAP and started this firm. So we have been into application management, product development, integration services, implementation services. So we have global delivery capabilities across Pan-India, Southeast Asia, North America, Middle East. So we have supported a variety of industries. So just to name few, we have supported on manufacturing, oil and gas, chemicals, IT services, conglomerate companies. Just to name a few of our renowned customers, we have worked with SAP India, SAP GDC, Wipro, UPL, SPCPL, which is Shapoorji Group, Kennametal, Government of Andhra Pradesh. Accounts payable is one of the most vulnerable process in the finance and accounting department. If there's one thing in common, no matter how small or large the organizations are, it is the receiving and paying of the bills on timely basis. So most of the businesses even today follow a traditional invoicing process wherein the invoices are received from the supplier by the accounts payable team. The accounts payable team manually validates these invoices against the PO, feeds them into the ERP, and then shares them to the respective authorities for approvals. Post approval, it is circled back to the accounts payable team, wherein then the invoices are processed for payments. So paying attention to the accounts payable process is very, very critical, because if anything goes wrong in the accounts payable process, the entire business will be in jeopardy. So no matter how small or big your team is, no matter how small or big your organization is, there will be problems. The problems arises. So that's why there must be a constant check on the outstanding invoices. So even if any one of them hits a roadblock, no one will get to know until someone has figured this out, until someone from the internal team checks it, like where it has been stuck. So there are plenty of roadblocks that comes along. So let's see, what are these roadblocks and how via automation, we can address these challenges. So some of the roadblocks that we have mentioned are the missing invoices and tracking of missing invoices. Now, what are missing invoices? I'm sure each one of you would know what are missing invoices. So these are the invoices that comes into light when a vendor calls the accounts payable team inquiring about his payments. When the AP team inquires, they find out that this invoice was never posted in the ERP at all. So therefore, invoices gets missed in transit. And even more challenging is tracking those missing invoices, because it would have been a while these invoices would have got missed, or it would have got dumped somewhere on someone's table. So tracking these invoices is again a big time challenge for the accounts payable team. Then there are lost invoices. So since these invoices are received in huge numbers, in various formats, these invoices gets missed or lost in transit. So probably what would have happened was the invoices would have come in, but it would have got lost. It would have got dumped on someone's table, and the invoice would have got lost. So what would have happened in the meantime? You would have requested for an duplicate invoice. down the lane, while processing this duplicate invoice, the original invoice would have also been found and both the invoices would have been processed for the payments. So this basically leads to duplicacy and double payments. So missing data. If the data is not accurate, the payments cannot be made. It gets stuck at the accounts payable team. And error in invoices. So probably if you are following a traditional manual approach wherein you're not using any kind of automation, because of the human intervention, there will be errors in the invoices. Probably while feeding the data, while circulating the invoice internally for approvals, there may be wrong input of information, slight number change or slight decimal here and there, and the complete invoice changes. And all this, probably if there is a manual intervention, there will be recurring invoice mistakes, because month on month invoices come in and month on month your team is required to feed these invoices into the system. Therefore, this is a never ending cycle. So if probably, if we have to get rid of these pain areas, then what needs to be done? So probably what happens, we can minimize or eliminate these invoices by using an automated, automation solution. So basically what happens, managing these invoices efficiently is very, very critical to ensure a smooth cash flow and enable compliance. To enable compliance consistently. So therefore, streamlining your accounts payable process also helps you maintain good relationship with your suppliers. So which can work as an added advantage to your team. The rate at which these invoices are requested by some companies far exceeds the loss rate from external email, whether they are received by through traditional post or via email. So basically, this suggests that the invoices gets lost, invoices go missing in action rather than invoices not received. So in simpler, if we have to tell, more than the invoices that are not received, the problem arises once these invoices enter the enter our organization, and these invoices perhaps here and there gets lost in transit. So now let's see, since we have seen the pain areas, like what are the pain areas, now let's see how this pain areas, what impact it has on the business. So these invoices, you have offline and scattered approval. Since we are following a traditional manual invoicing process, everything happens via communication. I mean, it does not happen automatically. You need a manual person who sends these invoices for approvals. So therefore, there are offline and scattered approvals. You never know. Probably it could be the approver went on 3 days leave. The accounts payable person would have sent an invoice to that person for approval. Since he was on leave, he would have forgotten. The invoice got dumped on his table and nobody remembers. The AP team has forgotten, the approver has forgotten. Therefore, this invoice got dumped and you never know. This invoice is not accountable. When the AP team, when the supplier vendor calls you for the payments, then the invoice is being searched, tracking of the invoices. So basically, there are a lot of impacts. So for example, there was offline and scattered approval. Invoice processing is delayed because everything happens manually. So the invoice processing delayed because it's a lengthy process. Invoices are received, entry is made, it is sent for approval. If it's a very lengthy process. Since you have not made the payments on time to vendors because you didn't have the visibility as to where an invoice is, who needs to approve it, you missed on the early payment discounts. Just imagine if you're in the position to make the payments on time to vendors, we'll be in the position to claim early payment discount from the vendors. So all these missed invoices, lost invoices, all this results in delayed payments, duplicate payments, which overall affects the cash flow. Directly or indirectly, it affects the cash flow. And the CFO will never have a visibility. He'll always have to be ready as to any time an invoice payment would come in where he will have to give approval because that invoice was already delayed and it cannot be delayed further because otherwise the supplier relationship, will be at stake. So these are the kind of impacts, that these pain areas have on the businesses. So do you still need some good reasons why one should adopt for an automated accounts payable process? we have listed down some few reasons. So with an automated vendor invoice automation, all these challenges can be fixed or can be addressed. So all the invoices that are received via email, via hard copies, soft copies can be directly received in an invoice cockpit. So this will basically help you with invoice visibility at any given point in time. So with a unified digital cockpit, you can the complete history would be available to you. At any given point in time, if you want to know what is happening to the invoice, where it is lying for approval, the complete history would be available to you. It can be accessible by all the stakeholders. Through automation, the human errors can be avoided. So currently, with a manual intervention, many of the times accounts payable team has to do most of the work manually, feeding the data, validating, then checking against the PO. So probably via automation, all these things can be addressed. So overall, all this can help in increasing the efficiency of your accounts payable team. So even with an automated approvals and workflows, we can avoid the wrong, duplicate, or the delayed payments. So basically, the invoice processing time can be reduced. So since you will have the information, you will have the visibility of each invoice, you will be in the position to pay your suppliers on time, which will help in a happy supplier relationship. Plus, you can negotiate more with the suppliers. You can avail the early payment discount. So these are some of the reasons that we have listed down. So on the whole, if I have to conclude, AP automation can help us, address most of the pain areas, the challenges that majority of the organizations today are facing with an manual invoicing process. So we at Payable, we have come up with the product Elipo. Elipo stands for Express Lane Invoice Processing Orbit. So Elipo is an AI-powered vendor invoice processing software. So it basically helps the accounts payable team to process all the incoming invoices in the digital format. So it helps the AP team to scan, share, capture the image data, handle exceptions with customizable approval processing. So I'll quickly take you through as to what are the components of Elipo. So there's an AI-enabled technology. Today, what happens is the accounts payable team manually enters the data, but with an AI-enabled technology, all the invoices will be automatically scanned. So there will be a centralized mail ID wherein all these invoices will have to be dumped on that centralized mail ID. From that centralized mail ID, all these invoices, all the details like the invoice number, the PO number, the quantity, all the details will be automatically captured. You don't need a manual person sitting for you and doing that for you. There's an invoice cockpit. The complete history, right from the time the invoice has entered into the cockpit until the time it is processed for payments, the complete history would be available to you at any given point in time. So it supports data validation as well. So let's say there was since it's an AI enabled technology. Let's say technologically there were some errors and the data, there was no proper validation. So an error will be thrown on the tool itself, telling that there was an error on this invoice. So let's say if there was a same PO number or some sort of information was missing, so it will throw an error that some information is missing and some sort of action is required. So these kind of errors. In Elipo, we support manual as well. So probably, someone can edit those details manually as well. So data validation also happens on the tool itself. So Elipo supports three-way match. Three-way match in terms of the PO, the goods receipt note, and the invoice copy. So you can trigger workflows and you can set in the approval delegation on the tool itself. Today, what happens is these invoices are manually sent to respective persons for approval. But in Elipo, you can predefine the workflows and predefine the rules, wherein once the three-way match is done, these invoices will automatically trigger based on the whatever rules we have defined. So for example, let's say, we have, let's take one scenario. So we have invoices, of different categories. Let's say below 50,000, invoices between 1 lakh to 2 lakh. So invoices below 50,000 needs no approval. It can directly, go to the ERP for payments. So we can set in such rules in Elipo wherein once these kind of invoices enter the cockpit, it'll pass through the data validation PMS, and it will probably automatically get posted to payment. You don't want someone processing that. So invoices which falls between 1 lakh to 2 lakh, so they need two kind of approvals. So we can set in such rules where any such invoices, we can define that, the first level of approval, let's say, could be the CFO, and the second level could be the head of finance. So we can set in such rules wherein once this is processed, it will directly go to the first approval, and then from the first approval, it will go to the second approval for approval. Post it is approved, it will automatically, get posted for payments. So these kind of rules can be predefined in Elipo based on whatever business structure you have. So Elipo is a cloud-based application. It is hosted on AWS cloud. So it supports out-of-box integration with SAP, but it can be easily integrated with any other ERPs. So I'll quickly take you through as to how Elipo works. So you have a supplier wherein this supplier sends you the invoices via various forms, the hard copies, soft copy, via email. So probably these invoices will have to be done to a centralized mail ID. Either the supplier can directly send these invoices, or probably the AP team can scan and upload these invoices on the centralized mail ID. Once this is done, the AI technology will automatically scan all the invoices. So based on, suppose that the OCR validation will be done. So based on, whatever the invoice recognition will be done, and the data validation will be done on the tool itself. So you don't need a manual person doing that for you. So it will verify and validate the data against the PO. Suppose that the exception handling is done, wherein let's say we had set in the rules based on the workflows, based on the approval, delegation, approval authority. So based on that, the exception handling is done, wherein then it is posted for the payments. So this is how the complete life cycle, that is the time where the invoices are received until the time where the payments are posted. The complete processes is automated and digitized. So we would like to show you a short demo on Elipo.
Welcome to Elipo. Today I will be showing you how our invoice will be processed using Elipo. As a vendor, I will be submitting the invoices to a centralized mail that is linked with Elipo. So I'll be sending this two invoices for now. Once the vendor has submitted the invoice to the centralized mail, the validator from the customer side receives the notification from Elipo. The validator will log in and see if the new invoices have been generated. I have logged in as a validator where I am in the invoice cockpit. Invoice cockpit is a 360 view of all the invoices that have been received. The new tab shows all the invoices that have been received without making any changes. The draft tab shows all the invoices that have been saved as draft after making some changes. In approval shows all the invoices that have been sent for approval. Rejected tab shows all the invoices that have been rejected by approvers. Submitted to ERP shows all the invoices that have been submitted to ERP with the respective invoice number from the ERP. Moving on to the new tab, the vendor has sent some invoices that have been generated and provided with an internal invoice number. Now if I open this, on the left hand side you will be able to see PDF or the image that has been shared by the vendor. On the right hand side you will be able to see the header data of the invoice that has been captured and some of the fields that have been defaulted. Coming below, we will be able to see the item details that have been captured from the invoice by the OCR. Once the validator checks all the details are correct, he will be able to send the invoice for approval based on the approval rules. Once the validator clicks on send for approval, there are two things happening. One, it does a three-way match, and the another checks for approval, and approval is generated. So in this case, there was a approval that got generated. Moving on to another invoice where the OCR has not captured any detail due to reasons like the data is missing in the invoice, or the data is not readable by the OCR, or it is not visible to the naked eye itself. Those fields will be highlighted in the application, as you can see. So here the validator can make those changes. And once the validator has made the corrections, he will be able to send it to approval, or in this case send to ERP based on the approval rules setup. So once the validator clicks on the send to ERP button, the invoice will be directly submitted to the ERP without any approval, and you will be able to see the ERP number generated from the ERP. Moving on to the rules, we have customizable rules where the user can set up the rules based on multiple criterias. So out of the box, we have multiple criterias like amount, department, GL account, or the vendor itself. So based on multiple criterias, the user can set up the approval flow. So we have the approval types single, series, and parallel. So we can have multiple approvers, as many as needed. Then we have notifications where we can set up when the notifications have to be triggered. So from the approver perspective, I would like to log in as an approver. Here the approver will be able to see all the invoices that have been sent for his or her approval. So the approver can accept or reject the invoice from here itself, or they will be able to see the invoice completely with all the information. So here they can accept, reject, or refer to any other approver. I will approve this invoice. Once the invoice has been approved, it has been sent for next approval. In this case, there are two. I will log in as the second approver. So I'll make the final approval. Once the final approval is done, you will be able to see the invoice number generated from the ERP. From compliance perspective, we have track invoice. Here we will be able to see the status of all the invoices as well as the audit history of the invoices, where I can see the invoice details as well as the audit history. This brings us to the end of the demo. Thank you for your